Look, I'll do my favorite lines. There's this line, but I want you to look at this line.
Got a call from Speedy. Where's my man Aron?
He left. He's scared like rat.
You offered him a watermelon, he wouldn't take it?
Nope.
Speedy, I almost got a speeding ticket driving here to get a hold of this Aron. He's trying to really put some people under. I gotta find him.
AMC Heist of the Century Project Popcorn, an account on historic fraud, visually presents the introduction of Project Popcorn as APE to the public and retail investors in the company, while AMC One Nation Under Fraud Part 1 presents the non-exhaustive story of APE's fall and AMC CEO Adam Aron's willingness to aid Wall Street in covering up their securities manipulation crimes by setting up a reverse stock split. One Nation Under Fraud Part 2 dives deeper into the murky proceedings at Delaware's Court of Chancery. News outlets scrape by with slivers of truth met with fierce pushback by Adam Aron to suppress the stories. A settlement is reached with the plaintiffs, while online personas ramp up their unwavering support for Aron. Meanwhile, steadfast defenders of retail investors confront those peddling misinformation. Vice Chancellor Zern declines to lift the status quo order, blocking a reverse split and conversion greenlit by a manipulated vote orchestrated by AMC's board of directors. Lauren Pringle, a Chancery Court insider, appears on a prominent anti-retail influencers show tied to Project Popcorn, attempting to decode the court's actions. Other influencers turn their sights on voices warning retail about the split's looming harm. Zern appoints a special master to sift through the settlement and retail objections. In a groundbreaking moment, one investor lands an interview with Aron, where the AMC CEO admits the split will let hedge funds shorting the stock off the hook with his assistance. A tangled web emerges linking FTX, counterfeit shares, hedge funds, Brazilian depository receipts, and AMC's complicity, all spotlighted by the pivotal date of January 27, 2021. Zern greenlights discovery, unearthing the explosive Daniel Meyer affidavit which accuses Aron and the AMC board of directors of deliberately sabotaging the company. Project Popcorn goes public and Aron's influencers double down, attacking retail investors while urging others to keep buying. Lawful due process crumbles as the court dismisses objections, propped up by the false narrative of AMC's impending bankruptcy, paving the way for the plunder of retail investors.
So let's go ahead and go back to it and what Project Popcorn is.
In consecutive days, the Chancery Daily, also known as Lauren Pringle, set up a live stream to assist AMC retail investors in the court proceedings. The first one was called Hello World. The second was called Ground Rules.
My God, if a movie ever gets made about any of this.
In the first, Pringle's subjects varied, but she generously spoke about the Berry affidavit, which was updated 3 times. The document had the list of shareholders who objected and those who supported Project Popcorn. She wanted to ensure that shareholders found their names and that they were properly categorized. She praised one of Anthony Franzetti's guests, who continued to harass retail investors over the 2 years of Project Popcorn, a noisy Corax, revealed to be Kansas resident Sean Tabor, a truck driver at U.S. Foods, who, like Philip Pitts, who did it twice, is also accused of threatening the University of Arizona and one of AMC's investors. He maintained a quick connection to Pringle after the release of one of the promotional posters for this video.
No, Corax, you've done good videos on the internet. I'm not meaning to disparage your videos on the internet.
An investor in Bed Bath & Beyond, Michael AME, posited on his X profile that Tabor denied any working relationship with billionaire CEO Doug Sifu, but vehemently defends him. while also having prior knowledge to a cease and desist letter sent to Michael before Michael received it. Upon a further investigation, Michael uncovered Tabor's penchant for following underage girls on the internet, in this case an Etsy account. While it proves nothing, Tabor's behavior is extremely suspect.
How much do we really like free speech? And like,
this isn't free speech, you mother...
Twitter
No,
would
not
have
even that. No, this is not free speech. Free speech stops when you start threatening other people. You piece of you. Here's the thought. If you don't want a centralized authority, maybe don't commit crime. You, Michael. I hope you die in a ditch. I can have my own opinions. I don't know if that's clear to you, Mr. Beal, Pulte, because I know you're going to clip this too. I can have my own opinions. I'm entitled to those. Separate and apart from anyone else's opinions. Motherfucker.
Pringle then gave her affirmation to the audience that she is familiar with the case. She explained the possible outcome to investors ahead of time, and the likelihood they would lose the case as there was no incentive for the court to do what was fair. Part of her mission was to get the court through the situation intact, reiterating from her previous interview with Anthony Franzetti that her main concern was for the court alone.
I care about the court. That's all I care about.
I am deeply, deeply familiar with this situation, with this case, with the facts of what's going on the ground. And I know that I know more than most of you know about what's going on. I am a Penn Law grad. I'm a member of the Delaware Bar, and there's no incentive for anyone to help everyone. There's no incentive for me not to sell out and help people with the most money. There is no incentive for people to help people like you other than in ways that make people a ton of money to the detriment of everyone else. There's just, the system is shitty in a lot of ways, and the system, we do our best to make the system work right, but it's imperfect. And I think that the only way to make it better is for people to understand better how it's currently working. The way to change the system is to learn about actually what's going on with the system, okay? I just want to get through this with the court somewhat intact.
Ahead of the settlement decision, the court knew via the discovery documents that Aron was attempting to cheat investors. She then performed apologetics for the court and the law. Some of the court's corrupt history is explained in the first part of this documentary, noting that Chancery has consistently avoided the law, particularly when it comes to rewarding only criminals committing fraud, making her plea on how to confront the system moot.
The law is the law. You can fucking hate it. You can rail about it. You can rage about it. But it is what it is. If you want to change it, if you want to make a difference, if you want to do something about it, you have to know what is so right now. Vice Chancellor Zern responded to what she saw in the discovery documents about Adam Aron. And her conclusion was, oh, he kind of tried to pull one over on the minority stockholders in AMC.
Pringle then focuses on the Berry affidavit. She admits that AMC hid some of the documents concerning the court on their website to make it difficult to find. Pringle talks about one of Rose Izzo's important objections, the ability to opt out, where AMC promises a specific caveat in allowing the settlement, that they would not immediately collapse the APE and AMC common stock shares, nor immediately dilute as a promise contingent to allow the non-opt-out clause.
2,850 objections were received. Now, they said that I think 1,200 some of those didn't have proper proof of ownership. They did bury them in a kind of annoying way. The issue of opt-out has been really fully raised by the Izzo objection, and so the idea that there should be an opt-out available in this settlement is now like fully in front of the court. So someone's asking, how can we opt out? The settlement that is for consideration by the court is provisionally a non-opt-out settlement. It at least just crystallizes a little bit about the statements that AMC made. I guess there's a couple of statements on the record. Basically, we're not going to collapse the common and preferred anytime soon. We're not going to use this as a dilution mechanism. There won't be dilution anytime soon. Like, don't worry. We're just issuing APEs. We're not doing anything else with it. So don't worry about that aspect of it. Don't worry, we're just issuing preferred stock. And so the Izzo's objection point is sort of like, you should allow an opt-out, even though allowing an opt-out sort of demands an indefinite injunction against the collapse of the common and the preferred. Even though that sounds weird because people are like, well, everybody's a expecting an imminent collapse of the common and preferred. Well, it's like, well, but if you look at what AMC actually said to stockholders was, oh, that's not going to happen anytime soon. So there's this kind of disjunct, like, well, was it actually expected? Y'all were put into categories. Anyone who submitted an objection. It's objection with proof of ownership, yes, opt out. Objection with proof of ownership, no, opt out. Objection without proof of ownership, yes, opt out. Objection without proof of ownership, no, opt out. So I guess all the supporters provided no proof of ownership. Oh, God, you're fighting like animals in the comments.
Pringle's first video was timely and systematic to the point where it connected to the second video. For the sake of brevity, the summary is thus. She said she is an officer of the court. Typically, they are paid. Pringle asserts she is not.
We also feel like as officers of the court, our job is to, try to take the load off of the court to whatever degree we can. Also, I don't work for the court. I want to be clear about that.
She then makes it clear what the standard of the Chancery Court is without saying it. An investor can infer from every subject covered in the live stream represented one brick in a wall, building up one by one to create the protection needed for corporations against its shareholders. The final outcome is to provide an easy exit, a free pass for AMC and many of those involved to escape future lawsuits covered in the settlement, making the Chancery Court a powerful accomplice in Project Popcorn, but nonetheless, per their history of corruption, just as guilty in committing fraud by allowing it. The entire process is carefully designed. Chancery is known for its lack of transparency.
Be able to look at the primary documents themselves. They're hard to access in the Court of Chancery. Delaware has a reputation for being not as transparent as I would prefer.
Historically, Chancery only allows non-opt-out settlements, trapping the shareholder in cases that are asking for injunctive relief. To view a contradiction in this policy, once the settlement is done, like cattle, the shareholders are sent to the slaughter. They have no choice in a non-opt-out settlement, but if it was an opt-out settlement, they are given a choice to opt out or not, because if those who did not want to opt out don't, at least AMC would benefit from those that did not. However, fairness is not how the Chancery Court typically works.
Historically, these settlements have been non-opt-out settlements in the Court of Chancery in the context of a case that is requesting injunctive relief. Every company that's incorporated in Delaware is like force opted in. It's bizarre.
Placement of shareholders into categories did not give the shareholders a right to opt out of the settlement, since it was a non-opt-out by default. No opt-out is beneficial always to everyone but the shareholders.
If the settlement goes through as is, everyone's going to be opted into it because it's going to be a mandatory opt-in settlement. Everyone's going through the gate. All that's being said by these categories is whether or not you said you wanted to opt out or not. Because this only settlement that is in front of her for approval.
Categorizing shareholders by non-opt-out or opt-out was to gauge the sentiment of shareholders. However, Pringle explained that it did not have a practical impact. It either mattered or it didn't, making a clear contradiction.
By saying, hey, I want to opt out in this round was to sort of show your support for the concept of an opt-out settlement. I would not worry with whether you're on the no opt-out or opt-out list. It doesn't have a practical impact.
Ultimately, Vice Chancellor Zern would be the one to declare the need for an opt-out settlement. In practical terms, starting again would be the court's time, the lives, the financial futures of retail investors, and uncovering massive fraud, versus going on to the next case for more money and aiding AMC in Project Popcorn.
If she finds that there is an opt-out class required in this case, we would have to have an entire new round of notice that gave everyone the ability to opt out properly. We would have to have an opt-out period.
Pringle added that resetting to an opt-out would cause confusion. However, allowing it in the first place by informing shareholders through Zern's initial letter would not have.
I didn't know I was supposed to say I wanted to opt out, or no one told me I had the right to opt out, or all these questions that you're raising. They would be problematic in the ways that you're thinking they are problematic.
Objections were unilaterally futile unless you had secured a lawyer, which held more weight than the outcries for justice by the underrepresented shareholder class.
Rosa Izzo's objection makes I think the strongest legal argument for an opt-out, which would outweigh 1,000 of you having requested an opt-out, I think, because it's strong and backed by actual legal arguments. Frankly, if the the special master decides that, your objections don't hold water, then I don't know, maybe she's probably not wrong.
The number of objectors for this case was at historic levels for the Chancery Court.
An historical number of objections got lodged in this case, and thankfully one objector had counsel, which makes a difference.
It goes without saying that Pringle was genuinely concerned for the shareholders, but she knew they did not have a prayer of victory, comparing the fight of David and Goliath from the Bible, with the exception that David would face 2 giants instead of 1.
David versus Goliath and Goliath chances. Like, it's a long shot. The whole situation is pretty I mean, I'm not sure that I see a really fair outcome for everyone.
Pringle sadly stated that she faced ostracization from colleagues convincing her not to aid retail shareholders.
I was really dissuaded from getting involved in it when I was first, when people were first telling me about it, they were like, don't get involved in it, don't involve yourself in it. I mean, there's a lot of classism about it, honestly. A lot of classism about it.
Because of her background in honorably fighting her way to become a lawyer through adversity, she was compelled to because of classism or class warfare.
That retail is, I don't know what else to say other than there's a classist bias. I am not trying to pat myself on the back for being here. I'm just saying it's why people aren't necessarily helping you out.
Coinciding with the aforementioned view of shareholders as cattle, which places everyone in the same category, regardless of race, treating the shareholders with blind prejudice simply based on their standing in life, which starts mainly at birth, like racism, hence a bias against retail investors from the start.
I went to school. I went to a fucking Ivy League law school, and I was, the only one there that didn't have parents that went to an Ivy League law school or whatever. I was first generation. I was only not first generation college because my dad fucking went back to college and graduated 2 fucking weeks before I did because I inspired him to go back to college and get his college degree when I went to college.
At the end, Pringle read verbatim an important clause of the settlement, which was beneficial for Aron and the board of directors, to avoid future lawsuits and potential convictions of crimes, notably for Project Popcorn's primary weapon, Ape. Pringle does her best not to say it in the video, hoping viewers understand. For any shareholder whose holdings were taken from them, it is immensely difficult to listen to and is omitted here.
In this case is quite broad. It's quite beneficial to AMC. That's why they're settling this case. That's why they want to settle this case, because it covers all federal class action claims. It covers all claims relating to ape claims for AMC shareholders. It covers all sorts of things. It's beneficial to AMC. So pretty much anything else that's related to ape, since the complaint is about the issuance of apes, then covers pretty much everything about. And they do seem to want the kind of release that they could only get from the court in terms of their exposure.
A shareholder's only recourse would be if they didn't receive the shares AMC did not steal as part of the settlement.
Claims with regard to enforcement of the settlement and the stipulation. So that would mean if you didn't get your settlement consideration.
The important part of the settlement for Zern was not the reverse stock split or that Project Popcorn was illegal, but to ensure that investors would get the portion that AMC did not take away from them, because with bankruptcy, retail investors wouldn't get anything, though AMC was not close to bankruptcy.
The concern of bankruptcy for AMC and the concern of shareholders sort of receiving zero consideration for everything, getting zeroed out on their equity, if that's a real concern, then of course the court has to be considering all of these factors. In the settlement context, the reverse split does not necessarily seem to need to be the thing that she would be most preoccupied by. To me, there are other things that I think she could be concerned with about about the value of this settlement.
Pringle took a question in the channel's chat that joked about FTX and tokenized shares. The question indicated that the shareholders may be screwed with the settlement. Pringle somewhat agreed, but it is much worse for anyone that had tokenized AMC stock.
FTX AMC tokenized stock, are you still going to be f***ed? Yes, probably. But if you have FTX AMC tokenized stock, obviously you probably didn't get a postcard either. And you probably don't actually own AMC stock. So hopefully you know that by now.
The devaluation of human life and their considerations of a peaceful existence coincides with Chancery's ties to possible child trafficking and the sickening desire to commit as much crime while the public believes they could do no wrong. Unfortunately, the vast majority of society is still under the spell that because of title, position, the way one speaks, demeanor, regal attire, awe-inspiring edifices, attractiveness, and other attributes equates to trustworthiness and honesty. Thereby, the public can assure themselves that politicians, lawyers, judges, doctors, scientists, pastors, and even mechanics are being honest when human preference truly is the greatest religion in the world, usually motivated by money or some kind of ephemeral or corporeal activity for gratification. No type of disguise will ever be able to mask some of humanity's want for more when they have plenty. In this case, as Pringle said, there is no benefit to helping the shareholders. It was a scam Aron and others created. She ended the live stream with a resounding and poignant quote about bias, among other corruptive properties of the Chancery Court.
I don't know, I'm probably a traitor to now the people who are similarly educated to me and stuff, but that someone has to break the cycle of just maintaining the information. Someone has to make it stop. Someone has to make it stop.
Well, we kind of called it.
We said that Delaware Judge Kathleen McCormick would rule in the Elon Musk compensation case after the election.
She overruled us Tesla shareholders.
Because who cares what we think?
And instead, she declined to reinstate Elon's compensation package from 2018.
Instead, though, she thought that we shareholders should pay the lawyers who brought this case against Tesla.
How much, you ask?
$345 million.
Yeah, let's pay for legal fees for a guy who owned 9 shares of Tesla.
Judge McCormick wrote in her ruling, even if a stockholder vote could have a ratifying effect, it could not do so here.
And Elon wrote, absolute corruption. And let's be honest, this is corruption. Plain and simple.
Kittila filed a 9-page motion for Izzo to supplement the current record, including responses to allegations and facts in the plaintiff's reply brief of further support of the settlement and its aspects. This also included documents cited in Rose Izzo's objection that were not attached because the parties did not permit objectors to download and view the documents. The plaintiffs also accused Izzo of having opaque connecting interest because she owned more APE than common stock shares. In Exhibit B, Izzo reported that Acer owned only 879 AMC shares, as well as the same number of APE. Franchi reportedly held only 32 shares. These facts were concealed up to this point in the case. In Exhibits C and D, Izzo stated Kevin Barnes, an alleged stockholder in AMC, who wrote a letter that the plaintiffs relied on in defense, was not disclosed to the objectors, leaving them with no chance to respond. Exhibits C and D were a late response to Barnes from Izzo. C is a letter showing that Mr. Barnes is a manager of K-Bar Holdings, LLC. And Exhibit D is an order and final judgment from the court dated October 13th, 2022, approving a motion by Bernstein, Littlewitz, Berger, and Grossman, one of the plaintiffs' counsel here, to award K-Bar Holdings $25,000 as a plaintiff's incentive. Kittila's affidavit also incorporated exhibits N through U from discovery. Exhibit N showed Antara's email from February 11th of 2023 and AMC's debt capacity, demonstrating the bankruptcy narrative at the time was false. Exhibits O through U contained mostly redacted brokerage statements showing the ownership of the plaintiffs Acer, Munoz, and Franchi. Ownership was revealed on a later date, leaving them with no chance to respond. Also on the 13th, investors Dennis J. Donahue and Mark Rubenstein filed a suit against Antara Capital over short swing ape profits. During June 14th, Jordan Affolter informed the court that AMC had allegedly sold over 200 million unregistered AMC preferred equity units in 2020 before registering it as APE. APE was not registered with the SEC until August 4th, 2022. A table was included to show the discrepancies in the calculations of unregistered APEs. Defendants declared the discrepancy was from updating documentation post-APE's release. However, it still did not account for the discrepancy. Zern then published the court protocol for the June 29th and 30th hearings on June 14th, 2022. In one of the few exceptions, Zern granted Rose Izzo's motion to supplement the current record. Michael Berry provided a revised version of his affidavit after shareholders responded to errors in the first one. Back-to-back tweets and videos by Philip Pitts selectively targeted outspoken critics of Adam Aron and his influencers. They are of significance here only because of the message Pitts sent to both men in attempting to destroy their characters, particularly with Eitan Leibovitz, in claiming he was part of a large psychological operation. The rest is Pitts attempting to send a message to retail that was patently false and clear manipulation by disparaging others from listening to those opposing Project Popcorn, again with no evidence, insults, and empty words to provide for his arguments.
There's going to be bad actors. We've been dealing with psychological warfare. When some people was, falling victim to the psychological warfare and bash their CEO every day, here it is. We're dealing with the real psyops. Here's this guy, Ethan, whatever his name is. He's basically letting everyone know, this is what he says: for those bad actors who continue to slander me, defame me, I'm saying I'm short or I don't own shares, here's affirmation. Remember, the first thing he says is, I own AMC stock. You gotta do more than that. You gotta show a snapshot or something. You ain't did none of that.
The court published a letter from Eitan Leibovitz on May 9th that he mailed on the 1st of May with 2 attached exhibits. Exhibit 1 was his proof of ownership through ComputerShare.
I know he's a quote-unquote no voter, but he damn sure doesn't act like a shareholder, okay? That's why it's important to catch these individuals, right? And everything goes bad for y'all. The judge disagrees, and then, she went with the shareholders that voted for it. What you gonna do, blame Adam Aron? No, you need to blame charge like this. I got the list of objectors. The list of objectors that were submitted with proof of ownership and did not request to opt out from the settlement. That's the rest of the YouTubers. Marine, Frankie, Donahue, and CSI. But guess who isn't on here? That's right, I've always said it. Eitan. Here goes the judge denying him. Deny. You know what I'm saying? Here go another one. 7 days later, a new one. Denied. So you're a fucking simpleton, Eitan. It's Adam Aron, and then here it is. We know the shorts are afraid of reverse stock split. Look at Ape.
By the 16th of June, shareholders did not see any proof of ownership by Allegheny County's retirement system, only a partial list of redacted screenshots with another entity, CIM Investment Management. The affidavits showed no relationship between Acer and CIM. Jordan Affolter noted in a letter that Theodore Kittela referenced a day earlier that Allegheny County appeared to only own Ape shares. Walter Shemaisky, executive director of Acer, signed 2 affidavits declaring Acer owned AMC stock since 2015. AMC stock was mentioned in the affidavits, but Ape was omitted. During the same day, Kittela gave Zern notice in response to a letter from the plaintiffs that stated Mr. Munoz was discouraged by a conspiratorial online mob, but has been trying to talk to Izzo's other attorney, Anthony Ricky, and the plaintiff's counsel has been talking to him for over a week. Ricky declined to speak with Munoz until he knew if Munoz was still represented. Allegheny delayed 9 days to respond, effectively holding him in a stasis. On the 18th, Randall Cornett retorted to a vocal opponent to Project Popcorn, Sugar Kush, on Twitter, calling the naturalized American citizen boy twice, a common derogatory term used on African American adult males to belittle their characters. Cornett claimed to have achieved true wealth in his short life after pumping AMC stock with the help of his friend Brian Reese. Cornett mentioned the snake oil he and Brian Reese were selling to retail in the form of Phase 6 ISDA contracts. he decided to demean Sugar Kush further by suggesting Phase 6 was above his understanding and calling him son to close out the exchange.
FUD busters. If you're loud and wrong on YouTube, I'm gonna call you out every single time. Frankie, you are loud and wrong every single time you drop a video. How about you show evidence of how the reverse stock split helps short sellers and hedge funds?
People be talking about the short sellers, they don't want the reverse stock split. You a lie. I was just reading an article by The Street yesterday. If you scroll down, man, to the bottom of that article and you read it, in that article by The Street, this is what the article was saying. If the conversion does not take place the way it's supposed to, or if the conversion is delayed, if AMC rise in price, short sellers will lose money. That's why the powers to be in the stock market right now, that's why they're controlling AMC to make sure that it don't run, and they controlling APE. You see what I'm saying? They are waiting on the reverse stock split. Hey, man, some of these influencers are making a fool out of y'all. When they tell y'all that short sellers, man, they are afraid of the reverse stock split.
We know the shorts are afraid of the reverse stock split. Look at APE.
Man,
Pitts cuts off the video, unable to answer Frankie Muhammad's claim, and launches into insults as a credible argument against him.
You didn't do your due diligence with the rest of us. I'm about to do it. I'm about to come from the top rope. Yes, he is a slurper of Jeepers Creepers versus Wall Street. He's also a D-writer of Jeepers Creepers of Wall Street.
Nobody can give you DD on AMC because none of the numbers are fucking accurate. We don't know the shareholders. We don't know how many shares are out there. We don't know what the institutes are holding. Nothing. So anybody telling you that we're going to run in a year or something like that, they don't know what the fuck they're talking about, because at the end of the day, their numbers are all bullshit. The facts that they have are not real, nothing. And there's a lot of motherfuckers, like I said, somebody's compensating them to hurt your morale. Isn't that going around? How the can somebody give DD and information on, and you know what kind of information you need on this play? Street information, because this ain't a normal play. So I let people look at charts, and this is how we've been, following along this trend. It's not possible.
In a rare tweet from Pantheon with near 2,000 views, he told his followers to stay strong and not get distracted. By the former, to stay the course and hold when considering his constant mantra, meaning those doing so would lose 90% of their investment. By the latter, to not get distracted by the infighting, which may have saved some had they been able to measure the criticism for themselves. Attorney Catherine J. Sullivan set herself to appear on behalf of possible objector Anthony Kramer. Via a joinder of Izzo's objection, she stated in part, Kramer was informed of the settlement June 2nd, 2023. 9 days past the May 24th deadline to deliver postcard notices, and 2 days after the deadline to object. No postcard was sent to Kramer via Strategic Claim Services affidavit. They never confirmed that the notices were delivered by the deadline, only that they mailed 2.8 million notices to shareholders of AMC's common stock, but silent about if it was before the deadline. Zern allowed Munoz to withdraw from the case, but did not investigate the potential fraud behind the lead counsel when it was within her power to do so. She posted a 9-page letter to the party of attorneys before the hearing, giving them until June 23rd to respond. Although Zern may have known the answers to these, it appeared she wanted the counsel to address them. Here is a small segment of the points she made. Did Mr. Franchi own AMC stock from the times the court was notified about the wrongs? Does Mr. Franchi have a standing to bring claims? What standing does Mr. Franchi have? She asks for clarification on the time frame where a shareholder held their stock and if Franchi was a part of the settlement class. If not, then how could he serve as a representative of the class? Meaning it appeared that Franchi was the sole representative of a worldwide class of investors used by counsel to continue Project Popcorn. Zern ended her letter by asking if Acer Allegheny Retirement System held common stock during the dates of the wrongs filed by the plaintiffs. Jordan Afholter wrote the court on the 21st of June expressing his concerns over a possible relationship between Special Master Amato and the Director of Operations at Antara Capital, Frank Amato. The obvious conflict of interest embedded into most of the mechanics of Project Popcorn would add to the unprecedented crime involved and would be unsurprising. The same day, Special Master Karine Elise Amato also predictably approved the settlement, and into the late parts of June, a number of shareholders objected to her intended decision. After Amato's approval the same day, Marcel Kalinovic's video carefully crafted a message that if the viewers pay critical attention to it, they can spot the manipulation in a format designed to entice retail investors to believe whatever he says and not question it. He starts off with the prospect of the individual shareholder holding his shares and waiting to sell at high prices, with the rest of his group chiming in with approval.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
We're going to assimilate you.
No matter how much they offer, there's going to be people saying, that I want double, triple, 5 times that amount.
100.
They could offer 100 grand a share, and I guarantee you 40% of the people will be like, you.
Later, his message is pointed at the financial institutions who control the markets, with an often played out inspirational message by one of his loyal contributors to the channel, Wolfie AMC GME, to inspire solidarity and fight injustice.
That we had to bail out afterwards, that we had to have austerity afterwards, we had to suffer afterwards, so that they carried on getting richer and nothing changed. Damn! You answer that. You tell the people that. You come back. We ain't lying. We can show where to look. You can make your own mind up. You can go and do your DD. If you ain't on our side, you're on their side.
Kalinovic then praised Amato's decision to approve the settlement. The settlement went on to aid the same people Kalinovic attempted to inspire retail against at the beginning of the video.
I got great news, everybody. Today we got an update from AMC court case. The special master that has been court appointed has concluded that the judge should deny all objections to the settlement and allow the settlement APE to AMC conversion and reverse split to proceed.
What was important to Kalinovic and the influencers in Adam Aron's corner was not the justice retail was fighting for and their attempts to reveal the crimes committed by the hedge funds, but their own investments and personal gain. One of them was an arbitrage trade between APE and AMC.
Now, some people still don't seem to understand that there's an arbitrage happening here. And AMC is at a higher price point than APE. And if the judge, June 29th and 30th, hears this court case as expected for the settlement opposition and proceeds to deny the objections as recommended by the special master, then there's a good possibility that APE will come up to meet the price of AMC, and at the same time AMC will come down to meet the price of APE, AMC preferred equity shares. So if people are wondering why AMC tanked in after hours and APE was up like 13%,
he then redirects a comment by a viewer who mentions a squeeze not happening in AMC because this is one of the core attractions to keep investors holding on to their stocks, especially before the split. The comment bothered Kalinovic. He then shamed the commenter into silence.
It looks like John Doe doesn't think there's going to be a squeeze that it's done with. John Doe, you're welcome to sell your shares at any time, my friend. Nobody's asking you to be here.
In another part of the video, he uses the dilution is good argument and the only times when Adam Aron issued shares when buying pressure by retail investors as a unified group occurred, causing the price to rise, not the dilution. So to Kalinovic, now, anytime Aron chooses to issue shares, the price will go up. However, dilution is never the reason why, though Aron's influencers continue to promote the idea that it does.
What causes the price of AMC to go up is fear of missing out buying, gamma squeezing, delta hedging, high volume, and AMC issuing shares. If you guys look at the last 2 times AMC issued shares, it was in May and June of 2021. That was when the share price went from about $10 a share to $78, $79 a share in intraday trading. If you look at the time before that, it was January of 2021, and AMC went up over 1,000 percentage points then.
He then takes shots at the YouTube personalities actually fighting for retail, suggesting they have been paid to lie to people. The charge, however, can be easily applied to those like himself, helping Aron from the beginning with Project Popcorn.
And many of your favorite YouTubers that you thought were your friends or that were looking out for you were, as a matter of fact, lying to you, either out of ignorance or because they were paid to lie. Now, I tell you this as someone that owns tens of thousands of AMC and APE shares, but I also own over 1,000 plus call contracts because I know what I hold.
With his substantial amount of shares in the company, one would deduce that he would be eager to substantiate his claims by writing the court. But like most of his words, they are just that, and usually empty ones at that. He then makes two more useless assertions: that the hedge funds were scared of the reverse split and that the cost to borrow shares was extremely high. The high percentage came down to earth after the reverse stock split completed, leaving the ones holding, like he wanted them to, with 90% less than they had before.
And I also know that they're scared shitless of this. See, short interest today via self-reported data was at 23.85%. The average cost to borrow was at 280%.
Unable to take any criticism, Marcel Kalinovic shows himself to be someone with little patience and ability to tackle anything that might expose his Adam Aron AMC infomercial.
Matt Cullen, please feel free to leave my stream. Casey Hogue, AA never said we're crazy for believing in synthetics. Let me set you straight, Casey Hogue. Adam Aron said that, I quote, AMC Theaters has no proof of synthetic shares, end quote.
What Adam Aron actually said was, quote, candidly, I've seen no evidence so-called fake or synthetic shares exist, end quote.
The reason being, because they're not the DTCC, you fucking moron. Only the DTCC has proof of synthetic shares. AMC is a movie theater company. The fuck off my channel, you fucking shill. No, don't time out. Get them the fuck out of here. Gone. I don't mind you having opposing views, people. You can have opposing views. But if you're in there saying lies and shilling in my fucking chat, either one of the mods or I are gonna ban you so that nobody can see anything you have to say. If you're in there asking questions and just generally inquisitive without trying to instill doubts in people's heads, well then we can talk and you can say anything you want. This is not the United States of America. This is not a free speech zone. It's my fucking YouTube channel. I'm not gonna put up with shills acting a fool. Imagine.
Kalinovic goes into a promotion for his lit exchange where he says he doesn't want venture capitalists involved, though he met some a year prior. His goal is to have retail investors assist him in investing in his new company through a founders program. Some have explained that his turn from retail advocacy to Adam Aron's misinformation minstrel occurred because of a deal that allowed him to make his lit exchange dreams a reality, allegedly taking a bribe to facilitate his wishes.
If you could have got in on the ground floor when Fidelity or Schwab were created, imagine where those shares would actually be right now. So we're not going to go public right away. That's not the idea here. I'm looking to avoid venture capitalist money.
He then turns his short fuse towards Allegheny County, who was attempting to finalize the settlement and were the first to conclude that the reverse split was designed to destroy retail investors. They were right. The words expressed by Aron's influencers attempting to say anything otherwise proved them to be frauds.
Allegheny has been able to hold us up in court with only 879 fucking shares. People, how many of you own more shares than Allegheny? I raise my hand. On one account alone, I think I've got 11,000 shares of APE. One account out of my multiple brokerage firms, not including all my other brokerage firms, not including my call contracts, not including my AMC shares. And Allegheny is the one that's telling you guys that a reverse split and a conversion and issuance of new shares by AMC is bad for you, for your investments. Allegheny. Look at those numbers. Why do you think these shorts are so fucking scared of the conversion and the reverse split? Marcin has 50,000 fucking APE shares. Damn, you're gonna be so fucking rich. I own more APE shares than I own AMC shares because I highly believe that this conversion and reverse split will happen. We're gonna be so motherfucking rich. I want my fucking money.
Acer filed their response to Vice Chancellor Morgan Zern on June 21st, 2023, confirming they held AMC stock from December 2015 to the time of the response. They added 3 exhibits. A screenshot from BNY Mellon indicating that CIM Investment Management, not Acer, owned the 879 shares as of November 30th, 2021. The second exhibit repeated. Mellon showed the AMC shares with the APE shares were owned by CIM Investment, again not Acer, on June 19, 2023. The final exhibit was an Excel screenshot listing Acer's trading history, showing CIM IM Investment as the manager. Their relationship was never confirmed but suddenly disclosed to stockholders. True ownership was never authenticated, presenting misrepresentation by the parties wanting an immediate settlement when they possibly never owned shares to begin with. Michael Berry released the third and final revision of his affidavit because of errors in the second. While the objectors were in a substantial number, there were some that approved of the settlement, proving their ownership and writing in support of Adam Aron. The total number of objections combined with the innocuously symbolic opt-out, non-opt-out questions were 3,154. Those who supported Project Popcorn with the same parameters applied numbered to 465. 279 of those had no proof of ownership. For all the ridicule, defamation of character, harassment, and vitriol the influencers and prominent voices faced in deciding to assist retail investors in their fight against Project Popcorn, a majority of them proved that they indeed owned shares in the company. Frankie Mohammed, Mike the Marine, Donahue George, Common Sense Investor, Jordan Afhalter, and Eitan Leibovitz. Some of the ones running interference for Aron and promoting the constant buying and holding of AMC stock, encouraging audiences and followers to trust Adam Aron and ignore anything else. The same cannot be said for them.
He cleared his entire Twitter history. He supposedly reached out to this person called Wes Christian. He tells folks on his Twitter account, "I'm a financial professional." When you're misrepresenting, you're hyping, you're pumping a stock, you're basically doing stock/market manipulation. Financial services professional. He was working for currently National Life Group, worked for Equitable Advisors, JP Morgan Chase, Primerica, Cormorant Capital. If you go to the website finra.org, they have a section for investors about protecting your money. Look at employment. Hey, Equitable Advisors, JP Morgan Securities, PFS Investments. Hey, all the stuff that he listed here. Equitable Advisors, JP Morgan Chase, all that. It's lining up. Employment history, all lines up. But what's this B stand for? B says, broker firm called a broker-dealer. Individuals who work for broker-dealers. The sales personnel are commonly referred to as brokers. Nowhere in here do I see the designation IA under his profile. That's what an investment advisor is. So we know that, hey, he's not currently licensed to act as a broker or as an investment advisor. But hey, they may still be able to offer other investment-related services if properly licensed to do so. Nowhere do I see investment advisor. He was terminated. He didn't quit. He was terminated, it looks like. He was discharged by Equitable Advisors, LLC, on March 28th, 2022. Why? The allegation was discharged due to use of outside websites and social media platforms in violation of FINRA rules and firm policy. He was terminated because he was using outside websites and social media platforms that he shouldn't have been using. What's to say that, hey, someone else just made the account, used the person's name, and is just using that social media account? LinkedIn profile? Did the real Avi Harkishan make this account? I don't know. You got so many folks in the AMC community that spread all this sort of information. But hey, they're never held accountable. They give you all these theories. Do they ever come true? No, they've never come true. Have they ever apologized for it? Have they explained it why? No, most of them never do.
Trey Collins, Marcel Kalinovic, Anthony Franzetti, Thomas Smallbone, and Brian Reese did not write the court in support of the settlement and/or did not prove any ownership in the company. Catherine Larson, however, wrote in support of the settlement without proving ownership in the company after claiming she went all in on AMC. Yet, some of them consistently attacked or silenced the voices of the ones attempting to tell the truth to the shareholders about Project Popcorn. More names among their group of accomplices also did not prove any ownership. Of course, they did not have to, but for all their empty words on Twitter and YouTube to provide any assurance to followers that they were truthful, they missed their opportunity, or like the others, may have never owned any to begin with, while collectively misleading retail investors to the Chancery Court's slaughterhouse. It begs the immediate question, while they were accusing the people speaking out for retail of not owning any shares, why go out of their way to willingly commit what is evident securities fraud, attempts to manipulate court proceedings, and meddling in the lives and investments of millions of people all over the world. Quality assurance manager Josephine Bravata at Strategic Claim Services filed a supplemental affidavit addressing Zern that they emailed 3 million postcard notices, significantly fewer than the numbers John Neuwirth reported on April 25, 2023, during a conference call. Exhibit D of her affidavit showed that Apex Clearing sent out only 43 notices in May of 2023, but in Exhibit A, Bravata, in the chart below, indicated that Strategic Claim Services sent out an additional 240,000 notices on behalf of Apex on June 9th and the 12th. 9 to 12 days after the May 31st deadline, the court was taking submissions from shareholders. In summary, over half the postcard notices were not sent until May 26th, 2023. As the name of the company implies, it appears they were strategically sent a day before Memorial Day weekend, leaving shareholders 1 to 2 business days to review the settlement, possibly hire counsel, read the discovery documents, and file their submission. This was short of Zern's mandate that the settlement period would only be effective if the postcards were delivered by May 24th, 2023, meaning over 1 million investors in AMC were denied their 14th Amendment right to due process. The additional injustice to shareholders was ignored by the Vice Chancellor. The columns do not show major brokers like Fidelity or apps like Cash App. The lack of international brokers presents the possibility that international investors were never notified. Robinhood showed that they sent over 1.5 million notices to AMC stockholders on May 26, 2023, again on Memorial Day weekend, giving shareholders a short time to respond. Since lead counsel were opposed to helping retail shareholders, like Lauren Pringle asserted, because of class warfare, they did not raise the blatant disregard of the Constitution for the sake of covering up Project Popcorn. Doing so may have revealed the true number of shareholders and the true number of shares. On the 23rd of June, Jordan Affolter wrote to Zern explaining that Acer failed to demonstrate that they held AMC common stock shares through the important period of August 3rd, 2022 to June 23rd, 2023. Zern responded only to deny Affolter's conflict of interest inquiry between Karine Amato and Frank Amato. Special Master Amato never defended the charge.
Throughout this entire process that we started to say no. Remember how popcorn was in the beginning? Make sure to vote. Make sure to vote. Motherfucker, you knew at the end of the day it was CompuShare and Antera that were going to vote, but you were telling us make sure to vote. You were doing the perception of the vote. You were trying to cover this up, you fucking scumbag. At the end of the day, you were just covering this up because you wanted to make it look like we voted yes for this. The yes voted for the reverse split. It was overwhelming. No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't at all. And now he went silent completely across the board. It was all planned. It was all planned. And now they're going to put the last piece together.
Doing things in life for the right reasons. End state is the goal.
It turns out that for the most part, this type of hype could have been fabricated and artificially designed by AMC insiders. Company insiders such as hedge funds, private equity firms, and top executives sold almost $1 billion in AMC stock over the past 2 years at prices significantly higher than they are today.
I would rather do that, not watching a single bar of the entire day, than buy AMC. The only worst thing than that would be buying Ape.
Today, I want to talk about how AMC is about to squeeze.
After Amato's report and recommendations on the 21st of June, Eitan Leibovitz presented Vice Chancellor Zern with several questions, including, would the results be the same of the March 14th, 2023 pre-decided vote be the same had she released discovery documents ahead of time? Did every shareholder receive a notice? If so, how many stockholders are there? If Zern moved forward with the settlement and all class members were not notified, would she be violating their 14th Amendment right? On June 28th, Jordan Affolter pointed out to Zern that the screenshots provided by Acer showed that CIM Investment Management owned AMC and Ape shares, not Allegheny County Employees Retirement System. The Parseval returned with an expose on NBA Dallas Mavericks owner Mark Cuban and his involvement with the tokenization of AMC stock via FTX. It further digs into an elite community of people and parallel investments. One of the AMC tokens that Mark Cuban owns was received on January 27th, 2021, a day before the buy button was removed from several meme stocks. The Parseval provided a link to the token's location. Cuban's wallet received 6,313 tokens, swapping for 3 Ethereum ones worth $3,684. He swapped at a rate of 60 cents per AMC token, which did not add up to the current value of AMC at the time. This did not correctly correlate to the true value, so the Parseval continued his research, leading him to a transaction in Cuban's wallet. From the transaction, Cuban was sent 1,001 tokens from an anonymous wallet, worth $1,223,000, 5 days before receiving the AMC token. The 1,001 came from the number one holder of AMC tokens. The Parseval pointed to the identical wallet addresses. Cuban claims he received junk tokens all the time, but does he get ones randomly worth more than $1 million? The history of Cuban's wallet showed that the number one holder of AMC tokens not only sent Cuban the over $1 million transaction, but provided Cuban's initial funding on January 12, 2021. This has relevance because FTX created AMC tokens likely to manipulate the price of the stock. The Parseval verified Cuban's wallet by the blockchain using a confirmed wallet of Cuban's that purchased the NFT BAYC number 1597. In his next post, he instructed others to check for themselves using OpenSea with a link provided, a search for the NFT's owner, and an image for instructions in a subsequent post. After proving Cuban's ownership of AMC tokens, both FTX and Cuban owned NFTs from BAYC. The Parseval dismissed the possibility of coincidence by demonstrating that one of the holders of an AMC token also owned the most expensive BAYC NFT ever purchased. He continued to say that the AMC tokens were created on January 2021. BAYC NFTs were created 6 months later. It may not be a coincidence, at least the Parseval does not think so, that they all have AMC tokens attached to them and they all happen to have BAYC and BAYC NFTs. As a supplement, he included another link going into detail about the history of BAYC NFTs. Sam Bankman-Fried shared several commonalities with Cuban. Bankman-Fried purchased 648 million shares in the company. The Parseval linked articles by Yahoo Finance and Frank Nez. Nez, like InvestorTurf, reports on the market corruption of others but sidesteps Adam Aron's treatment of his retail shareholders and connections to short sellers. Both articles claimed the Dallas Mavericks owner Mark Cuban holds AMC, GME, and Robinhood tokens. Cuban associates with Kevin O'Leary of the Shark Tank and other joint ventures together. O'Leary was a big supporter of FTX. The Parseval inferred that perhaps O'Leary let Cuban know what was going on with FTX, AMC, and the markets overall. He ended the thread with a meme 99% of the population could relate to. In Amato's report, it showed that the lead counsel misclassified dozens of stockholders. The hearings were held on June 29th and June 30th. Rose Izzo was given meaningful time to address the court with her objections. 3 shareholders spoke without counsel against the settlement, while Rose Izzo's attorneys Kittila and Ricky made the argument against Allegheny and Franchi's representation, compared to Rose Izzo as a more adequate one reflecting their collective shareholders' concerns.
I am so proud of how far we got. This shitcoin number 394,382,734,243,323 is so unique. It is really different than all the others. We are going to reach 1 billion market cap.
I am absolutely not paid to say this, but I have to agree with the dev. The dev is based. This project is gonna fly.
I am also not paid to say this bug. I agree with Schiller number 1. I have never seen a project like this.
Hey guys, just want to say my English not so good, but I put my life savings in this project and I really hope we move together. If not, my family will starve and my wife will divorce me again.
Hey buddy, we are one team. Don't worry about it. Even if it dips, just keep holding. I am absolutely not paid to say this,
Schiller 3 is right. Don't worry, Holder. I'm also absolutely not paid to agree with her.
Why are you so cool, Dev?
Ha ha ha. Oh, stop it, Schiller 1.
Ha ha ha. No, but really. You are the best, Dev. I am absolutely not paid to say this.
This community is by far the best one I have been to. It is a pleasure to be here. We are one family. We will buy Lambos together.
Somebody went into the courtroom and pulled a fire alarm. We can win this. We can win this. This process is winnable. That reverse split should not happen. The votes that we did everything correct. We did everything right.
Multiple accounts started ridiculing the hearings, with Catherine Larson claiming that all attendees of the court proceedings were left intellectually diminished after hearing retail investors' pleas to stop Project Popcorn from being finalized. As the hearings progressed, Aron's online crowdsourcing profiles supplied the AMC community with a fresh catchphrase. None of the objectors to the AMC settlement speak for me. None of them. This line was repeated incessantly, aiming to imprint the phrase and effortlessly sway those who do not think critically to join in. Marcel Kalinovic targeted one of the few speakers selected to represent retail investors, airline captain John Barton, focusing on his previous role as a lobbyist. In a predictable display of novice behavior, Kalinovic opted to attack Barton's history instead of engaging with the substance of his argument. Like his cohorts, Kalinovic was dead set on propping up short positions in their ruthless quest to obliterate retail investors' stakes. He tossed in the blatant lie that those same shorts were quaking in their boots, desperately stalling the reverse split and conversion. On July 1st, the self-important Brian Reese accused no voters of being swayed by YouTubers who dumped their ape shares before Aron forced through the manipulated vote, claiming to understand their motives during the Chancery Court proceedings. This reflects a frequent fallacy among those convinced by their superior insight, known as the mind-reading fallacy, where they assume they can accurately discern others' intentions without solid evidence. Citigroup's Jason Bazinet issued a sell rating for AMC with a maintained price target of $1.65.
Phil, are you back? Bot accounts. All bot accounts. Nobody know who the these people are.
Brian Reese ridiculed the hearings and showcased the threshold list at record levels to his followers, framing it as a reason to back the company and implying that the subsequent conversion and split would have no impact on it. Later, he responded to an investor on Twitter who had presented evidence of Project Popcorn, the email involving Citigroup, Antara, and AMC. His reply was notably unprofessional and childish, using the name of Christianity's central figure as a swear word, with a suggestion to the investor to take Business 101 and redirecting the conversation toward Al from Boston, a well-known advocate for retail investors' rights in the court proceedings. It's baffling that anyone took Reese seriously, given his apparent lack of education or credentials, which he seemed to project onto others to mask his own deficiencies.
It's Adam Aron, it's Adam Aron, it's Adam Aron.
On July the 8th, 3 posts came out from Aron on Twitter about the idea spreading around social media that the film The Sound of Freedom, about child trafficking, was being suppressed by AMC theaters. He touted the overwhelming success of 2 blockbuster films of Barbie and Oppenheimer, flipping again to a positive tone and suggesting those people believing the movie theaters are dead are wrong. AMC's bankruptcy narrative to the court was greatly exaggerated. The third was an excellent representation of how simple acts committed by Aron were skewed to place him in a status above the retail shareholders, to the pathetic view of him as a deity by one of the zealous accounts aiding him in Project Popcorn, endeavoring to continue to manufacture Aron's clean and meritorious false image. As time marched on towards Zern's decision, so the influencers in AMC and its leadership ramped up their rhetoric. There are only so many words one could use to replace the word lie and be effective. Mendacity is one of them, utilized by Thomas Smallbone in continuing the influencers' deceitful pitch that the shorts, again some of the authors of Project Popcorn, were behind the scenes preventing the settlement they wanted to happen.
I want to explain why this lawsuit finishing is good for AMC and how it removes one of the short's illegal manipulation tactics. After watching the court proceedings, both B. Riley and Citibank are expecting the settlement announcement this month. It's likely a ruling will be announced this week.
Smallbone quoted Edward Brigchuck, an influencer on Twitter, both supporting Adam Aron and defending him by threatening no voters with lawsuits, unsubstantiated claims, and asserting himself as a market expert with subjective, unverified, hollow rhetoric like this.
He said FINRA and the banks have been manipulating AMC against APE or APE against AMC since it was released back on August 22nd, 2022. They've been trading them against each other, using them as like-for-like securities, abusing loopholes, derivatives, ISDA, swaps, offshore shells, and more.
The shorts, as they continue to refer to anyone opposed to them, in this case the actual shorts, had their positions closed by APE, one of the primary goals of Project Popcorn.
But obviously after this AMC lawsuit finishes and APE converts back into AMC, this is another way that the shorts can no longer use to manipulate AMC. They can obviously no longer use those FTX synthetics, and soon they'll no longer be able to use the APE shares to manipulate AMC as well.
Stephanie Masoner, another Twitter influencer playing a real-life heroine for retail online, also attacked no voters and anyone standing in Adam Aron's way. Surprisingly, some of Aron's supporters were extras or D-list actors and entertainment people. AMC's promotional blitzkrieg to aid them in Project Popcorn appeared to come from those craving the income, notoriety, and success that may have eluded them through failed ventures. She adds on to Smallbone's video again by saying untruths that they could never back up with anything tangible. The possibility that these influencers were grazing over different forms of income to keep their AMC narrative going shows up in the form of one of Stephanie's messages to retail investors, asking them about their stock market situation. In Smallbone's case, if he has anyone believing his message, they would be inclined to purchase AMC or APE in the hopes of his continual barrage of AMC squeeze videos and the false idea that shorts were in trouble came true.
And as Stephanie tweeted, she said, right now this has put the shorts in a very sticky situation. The shorts have pushed the AMC price so low that no one is willing to sell. So even though the current price would be an attractive price for the shorts to cover, they can't because we have the float locked up. The shorts obviously can't create additional shares to buy those shares to close out of their short positions, because they'd first have to short those shares into the market and then buy them back, which would just put them back at square one. The shorts have to locate either real shares or the synthetic shares they've already sold into the market and buy those back to close out of their short position.
He then encourages anyone watching to use the app Moomoo because he gets a kickback of revenue from the platform.
And is a really great way to support me and to support the channel. If you just want that $100 cash reward and 5 free stocks, all you need to do is make a temporary deposit of $100.
Millions of people are waiting for this verdict, but nobody wants to point out one single thing. If APE was a dividend, how was a fucking dividend being traded, shorted on the exchange with a separate ticker, but it was free, but it's a dividend with the voting rights, but it's also a share, but it was possibly an unregistered security at the time that it was transferred, sold over to the other side. I'm just like, there has to be some type of influence over this whole fucking thing, and we already know that. I think it's just all a show. This lawsuit, my opinion, the way I see it, was like a big fix. Allegheny had what, like 800 shares?
Sequoia Blackwood, accused of blackmailing Adam Aron in 2022, faces a sentencing memo on July 12, 2023, from Assistant U.S. Attorney General Justin Rodriguez of the Southern District of New York. It casts Aron as a victim of a catfishing scheme, masking his identity as Victim 1. Blackwood's extortion attempt was undeniably severe, but Aron's hardly a victim when his actions stray beyond lawful norms.
Popcorn is the victim in all this, but I gotta say to myself, how do you become a victim in a sex texting type extortion blackmail type thing? You kind of have to have that freaky nature come out and be like, yeah, I could text with you. I just want to do some nefarious voodoo shit to you.
Today, I want to talk about why the shorts are delaying the split and what they're trying to put in place pre-split that's taking them so long.
This will be the first time where AMC will have to officially address APE. They would have to say what APE is. Is APE a dividend? Is it a stock? Separate, a new stock? they're gonna have to address Ape and everything Ape and Antara and the whole thing on it. And that's why they don't want to do it. Let me tell you something. They won't do it because they know that that meeting will open up the door to the lawsuits. They think this is lawsuits? Yeah, let me tell you something. That's why they won't do it. Ain't no line, Fibonacci, nothing on this one. It's the truth. What is Ape? I want to hear that one.
Today, I want to talk about how the shorts are about to tap out and accept the squeeze. I want to explain how they're trapped with dwindling cash reserves, why they'll soon be margin called in this dog-eat-dog world, and also explain how they're terrified of a split with yet another lawsuit.
Why do you think these shorts are so fucking scared of the conversion and the reverse split?
We know the shorts are afraid of the reverse stock split.
Like I said, they're scared shitless, you guys.
I consider it a short's dream for this lawsuit to go against AMC. They'd be like, oh, we got them in the final trap now.
Every time you split your stock, it becomes fodder for the shorts. I mean, when you go 1 for 25 and then 1 for authorized, 1 for 100, you do 1 for 9. We know that the shorts pounce.
If they don't convert, shorts just get shitted on right now.
They're stuck in their short position and cannot escape. Also, you can currently get a guaranteed free share of and at some point, their luck will indeed run out and they will be margin called by Bank of America. And all they're trying to do to escape their positions now is to start lawsuit after lawsuit.
All right, this is breaking news, so let me just do this right now. 2 seconds.
At 4:08 p.m. Eastern Time, Zern denied the settlement, citing that members of the proposed settlement class would release claims arising out of the action that they might have because of their ownership of apes. Zern noticed that apes were essentially carte blanche for Aron to issue shares at will, the mirrored voting by computer share, and the lack of common share support for the vote of the conversion and reverse split. The price for AMC shares rose 63% on Zern's ruling to $7.17, but Ape shares dropped 20%, closing at $1.43.
If this drags out, about the risk of bankruptcy. And I don't say that to scare anybody. I say it with that is my conviction, my belief. I have a very real concern if this were to drag out.
After hours, AMC just ripped.
A few days following Zern's ruling, Aron posted a letter to shareholders that included much of the same talking points as before, with layered fear-mongering placed thick onto the narrative to ensure that their desperation to save AMC was palpable with every word. His letter is noteworthy to read to see how untruthful he was to the shareholders, considering the evidence already in circulation among shareholders fighting against his plan, which destroys almost every part of his argument. Here are a few important points. Aron ties shareholder value with saving the company. If he doesn't save the company, the shareholders will lose all their assets. AMC was already granted the ability to issue up to 5 billion AMC preferred equity units to raise capital. Essentially, he wanted Ape to raise capital. Now he wants it back to AMC to raise capital, and he wants the reverse split to raise capital, and so on. Apparently, at this time, he is still navigating the pandemic. Aron doesn't want the company in financial ruin, but apparently 2 of his executives, Goodman and Merriweather, were fine with it via Merriman's email. He claimed to provide utmost transparency, but his lawyers, the Chancery Court and AMC, held back discovery documents and only allowed a certain amount of it to be viewed. The writers and actors strike could delay movies for several years. Aron used the raising equity argument, though he had Ape, which was the same shareholder value he is pretending to be concerned about, to raise equity, but decried the price that he allowed to be shorted and sold to Antara at a discount. He used the recent Regal bankruptcy at the time, which he later tried to buy the company, as a cautionary tale again, adding Bed Bath & Beyond because it was a meme stock that fell into bankruptcy, though it was also embroiled in possible counterfeit short selling. Aron cited the rigged vote approval by retail shareholders that would not have happened without the deal with Antara. On July 24, 2023, Theodore Kittela informed Zern that he readied to file for a stay pending appeal should Zern approve the settlement. His request was opposed by settlement attorneys, though it was fully briefed prior to Zern's decision. Also on that day, the lead counsel resubmitted an identical proposed settlement except for the exclusion of ape claims from release. This may have indicated that the ape claims were either worthless or the lead counsel on both sides were determined to make sure the settlement happened in disregard to what happens to shareholders.
Big news for AMC over the weekend. Obviously, the court ruling on Friday rocketed the price up 100% after hours, eventually settling around about 60, 70%, something like that. I was really disappointed to see Adam Aron's shareholder letter yesterday. I think the best thing he could have done would have been to say nothing. And all it does for me is just confirms that, like, this guy, I honestly don't think he cares about retail investors. He doesn't, because all that statement says is we're still in trouble, we're still going to lose money, we're probably going to go bankrupt in a couple of years unless you do what I say.
So another proposal went through today. You're going to see a lot of FUD going left and right. So just get prepared for that. It's going to take 10 days after the settlement before we get our conversion reverse split.
On July 26th, an account named FinTwit Frauds shared a letter purportedly written by numerous supporters of Aron within Project Popcorn, identifying them by their Twitter handles. The letter originated from Mike Petterman, a forensic architect based in New York. It claimed that 1,870 individuals backed Aron. However, only 186 of his supporters could verify their ownership in the company through the Chancery Court, compared to the 3,154 total objectors. This resulted in a 17-to-1 ratio of objectors to supporters, indicating that a small minority of shareholders supported Aron, and most lacked verifiable ownership in AMC. In his July 31st, 2023 post, Aron deliberately employs the term rooting to ominously suggest that AMC's bankruptcy is a looming threat, casting doubt on its survival through 2024, which it managed, or even 2025. He highlights the success of the Barbie movie and Oppenheimer, but tempers optimism with a fear-driven warning citing COVID and the writer's strike as hurdles that could doom AMC. Following Zern's ruling against the settlement, Aron ramps up this bankruptcy scare tactic in his public narrative. In stark contrast to Aron's constant fear-mongering, Cinemark's CEO Sean Gamble is quoted as saying, "We know that our studio partners are doing everything they can to minimize disruption of the content flow and avoid shifts to the extent possible in the release schedule." Of course, Cinemark did not have something called Project Popcorn working its way through the financial markets and the American judicial system. Thus, Aron had to perform a full court press to scare everyone into believing him.
Cap Juluca, Juluca, okay? The place ended up going under. I guess people lost like $40 million of investments. It was really bad, I guess. So it says, Mr. Hickok, it says, "We are not responsible for the current state of affairs at Cap Juluca. On the contrary, we are doing everything within our means to get a fair and equitable resolution. The property is in the current predicament," there's a typo in there, "solely due to the actions of Adam Aron and his partners, including Brilla, Brilla, Rowan, Rowan, and Manfredi, Manfredi, all of whom were working together." So this company, Cap Juluca, they had a resort. The investors were like defrauded. They tried to do lawsuits. They lost $40 million. Okay, so it goes on to say, "We're not working together with Mr. Aron, and we're not trying to put the resort at risk. We do agree that the actions of Mr. Aron contributed greatly to the bankruptcy of the resort."
On behalf of shareholder Anthony Kramer, Catherine Sullivan filed a one-page letter reminding the court she filed on July 21st as a joinder to Rose Izzo's objection. It emphasizes Kramer making a sworn statement that he did not receive his notice until June 2nd, 2023, meaning he would not have known that he had until May 31st, 2023 to file an objection. The same day, shareholder Chris Hamburg filed a 46-page affidavit containing a comprehensive mathematical analysis demonstrating that the reverse split and conversion would negatively impact AMC shareholders as designed by the originators of Project Popcorn. Brian Reese retweeted another statement by Aron that AMC had the highest grossing weekend in its 103-year history. Reese used this as a signal to highlight the non-existent fundamentals presented to an uninformed public, while behind the scenes, the company operated in a way that instead functioned like a tightly woven crime syndicate, with each financial institution doing its part to ensure short-selling hedge funds are not held responsible for destroying the company from the inside.
We're getting attacked so much today. It's ridiculous about the conversion. And
Brian Reese's August 2nd video drove home a clear directive: divert attention away from the true issues of AMC with red herrings and present historical falsehoods that now appear to add onto the securities fraud he engaged the public with for almost 3 years. He dismissed any opposition first by saying people will be upset with him after the video. It may be he knew he was setting up his audience beforehand, and that this was his way of falsely authenticating his message to them.
we'll see how much hate I get on this video. It's going to be pretty funny. I can't wait to see how angry everyone gets on this one, but whatever.
He presented 3 notable points. The Fed is running out of money.
For the first time in a long time, the Fed's printer ran out of ink, and they're basically relying on treasuries.
Fear tactics with Cineworld's bankruptcy.
You guys saw Cineworld the other day. They went ahead and filed Chapter 11 bankruptcy. It wiped out stockholders. All their shareholders got delisted. It eliminated $4.5 billion in debt.
Meaning it may happen if the reverse stock split doesn't occur.
I don't care about all these. I'm not here to save the company. I'm here to get short sellers. I don't care if I'd rather have the company go bankrupt and short sellers win. And it's like, no, you wouldn't. You will lose everything and they will win and they will be tax free.
The rigged vote with Antara may really be what was needed for the squeeze that Brian Reese has been saying it was something else that would cause it for the past 3 years.
By getting this conversion, you get your squeeze. What if you wouldn't have got your squeeze without this conversion? By doing this conversion, you kill the short thesis. By killing the short thesis, you could make people cover.
He then explained how and why, but like everything else, did not happen. He gives AMC retail investors a heavy plate of false hope and false information.
Well, when the permanent news comes through that, hey, this is actually going to come through, you could see it skyrocket. And that's the thing, nobody ever talks about that. It's always, well, we're gonna have to dilute 200 million shares and it us in the shorts, they win. No, what if that happens again? What if it goes even higher? And now guess what? What if it shoots up on AMC and we all know Ape's gonna shoot up? Everyone's gonna rush to Ape at that point. Because everyone always wants to be doom and gloom. Oh, what if it shoots up and all of a sudden, 50, 60 bucks? Who the f knows after conversion? $45. Imagine if he sells and at an average of $41. He sells 125 million. Well, guess what? He'll never need to fucking ever sell more than that. You don't know what it's going to convert at. And everybody that says the same thing. Becomes, we're giving up all our shares. But guess what? The shares you're getting at the time become more valuable. And let's say a squeeze takes place because of the conversion. Guess what? The start now, the floor is now higher than it would have been. So those prices that you're going to get can get there. The ceiling could be a lot higher because you're starting higher.
Mullen Automotive, a failed EV manufacturer. The stock has supposedly become another target of naked short selling, but in reality, this company has been a failure from the very beginning. Not due to naked short sellers or the institutions, the blame rests solely on the management team, especially the CEO, David Mitry.
Joining me now, in fact, Mullen Automotive Chairman, CEO David Mitry, along with Wes Christian, who's been on our show before. People are saying you've taken a lot of money, you've paid yourself a lot of money, and this kind of spending, it just doesn't make sense for a small company like yours.
Me and my employment contract are compensation pursuant to awards were given. And
David, can you hear me? All right, you're fading out, and I've got 20 seconds. One last thing: these stock splits. Okay, I read your firm. What the firm is saying is that these stock splits were done to stay compliant with Nasdaq listings. But every time you split your stock, it becomes fodder for the shorts. I mean, when you go 1 for 25 and then one for authorized 1 for 100, you do 1 for 9. We know that the shorts pounce. So, folks, it looks like we're having some audio issues with David. We're running out of time. We'll pick this up again. We want to go over these stock splits, which to me are just nuts. They're nuts. All you're doing is helping the shorts. We'll also talk about the role of dark pools.
Most of this compensation is definitely going to David Mitry. What has this management team ever done to deserve this much money? This management team has run this company into the ground. just as we would expect, given David's past.
By August 4th, 2023, there were 519,192,389 AMC common shares and 995,460,413 APE units issued and outstanding. Brian Reese mocked Mike the Marine for protesting outside the SEC with a group of retail investors earlier in the year, 2 years from the date of Project Popcorn's beginnings. This would continue as a common theme among Aron's supporters to talk about market corruption, but not produce any action behind their feckless words. Adam Aron's former boss at Apollo Global Management, Leon Black, pays the United States Virgin Islands $62.5 million to settle lawsuits linked to his friend and business partner Jeffrey Epstein. Black, Epstein, and Aron connect to Aron's time in Vail, Colorado as the CEO of Vail Resorts, and during Aron's time with Apollo Global Management across over a decade. The three also have been accused or participated in pedophilia. Aron's tweet on August 6th that COVID is still actively affecting AMC despite its historic box office returns repeated the hopes that maybe AMC will turn around by 2025. Currently, they are unsurprisingly embroiled in more lawsuits since AMC leadership has not changed, though the criminal intent of the corporation is evident for all to see and read for themselves. The same day Aron posted Barbie's box office earnings, followed closely behind Oppenheimer, pointing the message at those calling movie theaters dead, mostly short sellers attempting to destroy the stock price and the company. However, some of those were also AMC executives knowing it was being shorted through Project Popcorn. On the 7th of August, an unknown user named dvader801 exposed the AMC influencers a third time, revealing the identity of AMC Bigums, a Domino's Pizza employee, Brian Reese. Reese deleted his LinkedIn profile, but information captured by Vader suggests a past that might have involved civil commitment, a court-ordered institutionalization for individuals with mental illness, alcohol, or drug addiction, typically due to being deemed a danger to themselves or others. However, Vader did not confirm the accuracy of his claim. On the following day, unable to come to terms with Reese's identity revealed by Vader, Casey Shaw called the discovery lazy and Reese a normal guy. Shaw's ability to project himself as a genius in math and the stock market evidently allows him the inability to comprehend reality, as his statement in effect bolsters Vader's argument. Neither of these two men, Reese and Shaw, had any reason, professionally or otherwise, to be manipulating the stock market, nor interfere with people's investments, particularly when they could never provide the proof that they owned any shares, only that they were willing to sell out retail investors to Aron's Project Popcorn scheme. In his next tweet, he said, "The real fraud isn't the average investor. It was those who are trying to expose people for exactly what they are, normal people that are equal." When translated, Casey Shaw is saying the real frauds are the people attempting to identify those committing securities fraud in order to find out why they are supporting Adam Aron and Project Popcorn. Thomas Smallbone's video on the 8th of August declared the squeeze is here.
Today, I want to talk about how AMC has just posted its first profitable quarter. This is huge news. I want to explain how this spells game over for the shorts. Boss Blunt's tweet is saying total revenues grew by 15.6% compared to quarter 2 of 2022. And also adding saying Judge Zern is to rule on the court settlement soon, quite possibly this week. And if approved, AMC could proceed with the AMC to APE conversion and reverse split within 2 weeks. Now would be a good time for those shorts to panic.
On August 9th, Marcel Kalinovic posted that AMC Entertainment CEO Adam Aron's decision to issue new shares following the company's reverse stock split could drive a dramatic surge in AMC's stock price, as seen in previous rallies, by squeezing hedge funds with short positions. Vice Chancellor Morgan Zern rendered a decision on August 11, 2023, asserting that the settlement was reasonable, giving Franchi and Allegheny County full representation of the worldwide class of investors. She disavowed the objectors' issues with the minute amount of shares held by both parties compared to the millions held by them, the majority of common stockholders. Her reasoning is indicative of removing logic and sound adjudication out of the picture, rather allowing her preference to take precedent over the unethical nature of Project Popcorn. Adding to the amount of people, including the CEO of AMC Theaters, Aron, in the corner of hedge funds, a state judge of Delaware in one of the most corrupt courts in the United States of America, suspended justice to join the group hell-bent on approving one of the biggest securities heists of the modern era. She did not allow an opt-out. For the same reason, should she allow it, the court would have to continue the status quo and reset the case, and that wouldn't bode well for AMC and those operating within the company to remove the ownership from retail investors. Franchi and Allegheny County were both awarded $5,000 each. Rose Izzo's objection was dismissed, as was her appeal. Incredibly, she stated that granting a stay of the conversion and reverse split would inflict substantial harm on AMC and its stockholders. APE shares went up 27%, closing at $2.26, while the common stock AMC fell the same amount, closing at $3.93. Catherine Larson celebrated Rose Izzo's loss of an appeal.
Judge Chancellor Zern has approved the proposed settlement of AMC. They've approved the conversion of 1-to-1 APE share to AMC share. She has approved the reverse split. She has approved the share issuances.
After the gavel of Vice Chancellor Zern fell like a thunderclap, sealing the fate of retail investors through Project Popcorn, in that moment, a bold heist was set in motion, and loyalists of Aron, AMC's embattled showman, sprang into action. They moved swiftly, retreating to the digital shadows to retool their narrative. Old promises were dusted off, woven seamlessly with glittering new claims, and broadcast to the world under the thin veil of
not financial advice, but we're going to be so fucking rich.
It was a familiar game, cloaked in fresh rhetoric, a calculated dance of market manipulation framed as wisdom, unchained by the absence of guardrails in the wild expanse of social media. Influencers, like a chorus of devoted heralds, took up the cause. Their voices echoed across platforms, repeating the script with fervor, shielding what remained of Aron's once towering legacy. To the faithful, he was still the maestro of a grand comeback. To the skeptics, the cracks in the facade were impossible to ignore. Their claims were bold, a litany of predictions meant to rally the masses. A dividend from AMC, a golden carrot dangled before investors.
Watching AMC pay off their debts and issuing a dividend would be an absolute dream for me.
The short thesis they declared was dead.
The short thesis is
leaving hedge funds no choice but to cover their bets.
I do not think it's going to take AMC long to pay off their debt. It has the ability to issue shares and pay off all their fucking debts in a matter of weeks, maybe even days. You guys know who has to pay for a dividend when a company pays off all its debts and issues a dividend?
Shorts, they said, would tremble at the stock conversion, forced to pay the dividend's price.
Let me know, drop it in the live chat. The shorts have to pay for dividends.
Dilution, counterintuitively, would propel the stock price to the stratosphere as it had in fleeting moments before.
If Aron dilutes, I will be extremely happy. Because what happened the last two times that AMC diluted shares and sold shares on the market? The last time AMC issued shares in June of 2021, the stock rose from $10 a share to $79 a share.
Retail investors' stock value would stand firm, unshaken by the storm. The cost basis of shares, a trivial detail, irrelevant to the small investor.
A short position does not decrease in value because of a reverse split. If they had $50 million short position, one firm, for example, before the reverse split, they will have a $50 million short position after the reverse split. This does not change the value of a short position, and it does not change the value of my portfolio. It simply takes a share that I have, 10 shares that I have now, converts them into 1 share, and increases the price of that share 10 times. It's like having a $100 bill or having 10 $10 bills. They equal the same thing. I know I'd rather carry around, just happen to have this, I'd rather carry around a $100 bill than carry 10 tens any day of the week. I don't need 10 tens taking up my pocket space.
Short interest, they claimed, had soared to historic peaks, spelling doom for the bears.
In addition, the cost to borrow will likely go up higher because there will be fewer shares available to borrow.
The days to pay and the days to cover is absolutely huge.
AMC is the most heavily shorted stock on the market.
Right now, currently, say we have 1.5 billion between AMC and Ape combined. We'll only have 150 million total after the reverse split of AMC and Ape shares combined. So the share locates will be harder to find. The cost to borrow would be increased. The shares on loan would be decreased, but still remember those value of those shares on loan would be increased times 10. If they have a reverse split, the number of shares I may have is reduced by 10, but the value of my shares is increased by 10.
And the failure to deliver shares, FTDs were mounting, a ticking time bomb for the shorts.
These guys are absolutely fucking scared. Shorts are desperately trying to prevent the conversion of Ape to AMC and reverse split.
Marcel Kalinovic, himself lacking advanced education, often resorted to ad hominem attacks, dismissing opponents as uneducated and ignorant. Yet his focus on YouTube, obsessing over his wealth, others' money, and the global economy undermined his credibility. His shaky arguments crumbled under examination, so it's unsurprising he sidesteps addressing them.
Yeah, I'm not dealing with any of the the shills and the uneducated, ignorant people that are out there saying, oh, the reverse split is gonna fuck me, it's gonna fuck my investment, this and that. Why do you care where my money is? I feel perfectly happy that this reverse split and conversion and issuance of shares is happening.
I don't want this to be a video speaking about how the plaintiffs were obviously paid by the shorts to bring this lawsuit against AMC. I want to talk about the settlement approval and what's likely to happen as a result. And obviously when those shorts close out of those newly created synthetics created today, Monday, Tuesday, or yesterday, that means the price of AMC will go up. And obviously closing out of those old synthetic shares from 2021, 2020 and before, when they eventually close them or when they're forced to close them, it will cause the squeeze. The only way the shorts win is if AMC goes bankrupt and gets delisted and they never have to close out of those short or synthetic short positions.
Like I said, guys, keep smashing the box office. This is how we give a middle finger to the shorts.
Reese's next video, released on August the 11th, insisted that Aron could arbitrarily file for bankruptcy, despite the company being far from such a situation. Astonishingly, Reese argued that if the reverse split doesn't occur, Aron would be compelled to sell Ape at a lower price, as he did originally under Project Popcorn. This is a point that only Reese seems to acknowledge in his argument, either unaware of or deliberately overlooking the fact that the sale of Apes was part of a rigged vote involving collusion and fraud by Citigroup, Antara, and AMC. However, Reese openly admitted that he examines the spectrum of events but selects what aligns with his preferences rather than maintaining objectivity.
Make AMC as profitable as you can. They can go ahead and do a lot of these repairs, pay down some debt. How did we manage to pay this down? Dilution. I'm saying, you guys, like, everybody sits there and Aron wants to screw us. He could file Chapter 11 if he really wanted to. If he wanted to fuck you guys so bad, that's all he had to do. That's what I'm saying. Like, people get mad at me because I look at down each road and each path and I look at the full picture. The slushies are coming. Okay, so like I said, now you have all these institutions. You have a couple Antaras. Now what? Now you guys are gonna go nuts the whole time because you have to have buyers. And if nobody's buying and all of a sudden Ape drops back down to $1.88, what happens if these shorts go, we can all buy these up? And this is the one thing you guys said you didn't want from the beginning. Now all these shorts can go ahead and buy up all this Ape super cheap, and then they can vote it over and convert it. And guess what? Now they got their stuff on pennies on the dollar. This is what we did not want. what, if we keep getting profitable and they get the conversion, that's less and less he needs to dilute. Keep seeing as many movies as you guys can.
But as weeks turned into months, the promises unraveled. One by one, the predictions fell apart, exposed as hollow. The faithful waited for miracles that never came. The truth spoke louder than the hype. Those fraudulent claims built on bravado and hope crumbled under their own weight.
Well, everybody who wanted a checkmate finally got that checkmate. Adam Aron's 4D chess, I guess it turned into reverse chess. Because those that thought that Adam Aron was fighting for retail investors, turns out that he was fighting against retail investors, and he has finally put in his final move. The checkmate has been made, and it was against retail. Hedge funds, they're walking away laughing right now with hundreds of millions of dollars created for them in AMC's APE shares rising in value. While AMC retail investors, the ones who have struggled for the last 2 years, 3 years, buying up shares of AMC Entertainment in support of this company that we trust, we love, we support, well, that turned out to be a bad move. Losing over $800 million in value in a single 5-minute tick. We're watching Adam Aron laugh all the way to the bank